Hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 135. This is the Independent Musician's Guide to Production and Promotion. And this week, we're taking a look at the newly released Digitone 2, however you want to pronounce it. We can ask Ian like his preferred preference, but we'll talk that. There's a lot here, and we're going to go through kind of everything that's new, what they've done, all that type of stuff. And then we'll talk monetization for I guess a monetization pathway. I didn't actually cover this one, Curtis did, so he'll know more to talk about this. But for Bluesky, which is a Twitter, or should I say X competitor, one of the ones that came following the change to X and all that. There's also Threads, but all that. But Bluesky's doing some sort of monetization pathway. So is this worth it for musicians? We're going to talk about it. Curtis has all of that. My name is Sun Warper, and with me today is Eon Lake. What's up, man?
Hello. I might sound a little bit croaky this week because I've got some seasonal germs. I like to enjoy some germs this time of the year, just to remind me that it's autumn and summer's gone. What better way to celebrate?
I thought you said cranky. I was like, you're always cranky, man, but croaky. I
like to shift the reason a little bit. I like to pretend that, it's not a steady state and it's a reaction to outside stimulus, but really I'm just, who cares about the reason? I'm cranky. Yeah.
All right. Well, what have you been up to? Have you been doing some music or anything?
No.
All right. Well, that was quick.
Worst response to give, but I really haven't. And I've been missing it. I've been missing it a lot. I need to find some time. It's been a little bit crazy the last week, and I haven't had much chance. Family birthdays and stuff like that. We'll be getting back to that.
Getting
back to that.
Nearly had my eye out there.
Well, I appreciated the quick answer, but I guess we can move right along then over to my Audionautic co-pilot, Curtis. What's up, man?
Mate, Seasonal Germs still is the best album title that I can come up with. And I'm going to write an album with Seasonal Germs. I love that.
Will it be part of the Curtis mythos?
Something like that. We'll have to see. Depends what happens after whatever this album's going to be. We'll have to find out. We are all over the place. We are discombobulated. Got a text from you, 15 minutes ago? Hey, due to go live. We've had a time change in Europe, but we haven't had that time change in America. So if you are listening, watching live, Smiling Arrows is here. Hi, how you doing? We're here an hour early. But in the US, everything is normal apparently over there. Is that correct, Sun Walker?
Yeah, it's very weird. I was like, it is way too quiet. There's nothing scheduled. Like no StreamYard is scheduled. Something's up. So I was like, hey, everything all right? We're going live in a couple minutes. And he's like, we're going live in an hour and 10. And I'm like, no, we're not.
We're not. No, that's fine. Once again, we have been bitten by wibbly wobbly time, and we've been doing this 4 years. We just celebrated our 4-year anniversary. Wibbly wobbly time still gets us. This is, if you are new to the channel, is this notion of times and time changes from summertime to wintertime change differently, whether you're in Europe or if you're in America. So that always confuses us.
Which is something I learned doing this.
Right, it's mental.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And you know what? Before the pandemic, it was going to be erased from entirety. And it wasn't going to be a thing. And then the pandemic happened, and suddenly it's still happening, which is insane.
It just got forgotten, but I haven't forgotten. I remember because I hate this time change thing.
Exactly. It would be so much easier in a globalized international world where we're trying to run an international podcast on a live basis, where we have people and listeners on, and a community on all 5 continents of the world. I can't remember if there's 4 or 5, but it'll be so much easier. But we're here. We have made it. It jumped on at a moment's notice, and thank you, Ian Lake.
We were like, hey, Ian Lake, you can come on later. And I also want to mention our patron Lars is just hanging out in the green room because it's normal time for him. So he showed up as per usual. I was watching just the live counter. We've actually got quite a number. We got 8 on, but we'll stay on a little bit past noon so that we can make sure we get anybody that may be coming an hour late just due to the time changes and stuff. We'll stick on for just a little bit after, so we can let you know, hey, rewind. but yeah, so Curtis, what have you been up to in these time change times?
Been in the forests of Czech Republic. A lot of sticking my feet in the ground and not doing much in terms of technology, which has been fun.
Nice.
Which has been great. Big thing, if I may, the big
You
thing
may
which
not.
I've come home to. Oh, then
I'm just kidding.
But the big thing that I've come home to, literally got back last night, picked this up this afternoon.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Here we go. I love how this is like Digitone 2, and we're all just like, look at the SP404.
It's still awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a good way to put it, Eon. Like, real quick, just want to say hi to our patron Abby. What's going on? Happy you could join us. I know they were frustrated they couldn't come on. I think it was last week. These time changes and stuff got me, but I think it was last week. But yes, I'm happy you were able to make it. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. Let us know. But not Eon Lake. You've had an SP404. You know, let's move on. But Curtis, have you gotten a chance to check it out much?
Not. Literally picked it up, installed. I've done 4.06. I've done the firmware update.
You're farther than me. I still have 4.04. In my live stream yesterday, I got the resample bug. I was making a merge sample of a synth. I was making a synth, and it just like did the crash, and I'm like, there we go. Still need to update.
There we go. Well, there we go. I've got that far, and there's currently an SD card with some samples that I've got in there. Haven't had a chance to play it. Haven't had a chance to actually do anything with it. So that's okay. But it's been 2 years in the making. This is a testimony to my gas or my gear acquisition syndrome. For those who are unfamiliar with the term, I've been sitting on it for 2 years and finally made it.
Been sitting on your gas for 2 years.
That sounds very unpleasant, man. You may want to see a doctor after like a week or so with that.
No, I have to salute your restraint there and your selectivity. I mean, we talked about it a lot, and you agonized about what's the right thing to get because money's not inexhaustible.
Yeah,
and you went for the best bang for the buck, I think. There.
Yeah, I do want to ask quickly before we get into the Digitone and what we're all up to, whatever. But you seemed really excited about the P6, so I'm curious what the deciding factor was between the P6 and the 404 for you. And let's throw in the EP133 too, because I remember you were real jazzed up about that, dude.
I was jazzed, and I'm still jazzed up about it. And I think in another world, I'd still like to get the 133. I think that'd be really cool. I do really appreciate where it's coming from. I love the quirkiness and I love the flatness of it, and it's very cool. The reason I went for the SP404 is, to be honest, I think it's about the fact that I've had it on my radar for 2 years. I'm very much like that kind of person where it's like, I want that, and even if I can't buy it now, I'm going to buy it anyway. I will buy it at some point.
I got you.
It's the biggest bang for your buck in terms of what you can do, the functionality of it. There is a whole community around it. And I want to kind of express that and go through that in the way that I can. The reason I didn't go for the P6 is because I feel like the P6, as you've done very well on your YouTube channel, somewhat, is express it in a way of it's a supplement to the SP404, whereas the SP404 would still be kind of like the main mothership, so to speak. And I want that. To be honest with you, what it's about is, again, if I grab it, because it's that notion of it's in my hand, I can take it with me. It's a powerhouse. And if you put it here, along with the Ultranova and the Mini, the Monologue, that and the guitars, it's a very good kind of...
You can even loop on it, man. You can even loop on it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where I'm coming from. Slowly over there's a doorless kind of play tray, as Eon Lake might say, sitting there, and that's where we're going with it. It has to be the SP404.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That would be a big deciding factor, I think, because the P6 can't do a lot of those kind of things.
Exactly.
Storage on it's huge as well. If you put an SD in it,
And 16 minutes per pad sampling time.
Looks beautiful. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward. Again, at point of broadcast, I've unpackaged it. Didn't even have time to send a photo to people. Like I sent you guys a photo last night of it in the box and stuff like that. And I
With the cat. With the cat.
Yeah, and exactly with the cat.
Covering the box.
I just haven't had the chance to open it up. So nothing. I am a newborn baby. I've just been taken out of the Matrix, and I am a bald Neo. And we're gonna see what happens.
There you go.
We'll see. But that's enough about me. What have we got on the docket this week, Sunwalker? Let's talk about Digitone.
Yeah, let's talk about the Digitone. All right, so we got the Digitone 2, and this looks pretty cool. I mean, I don't follow a lot of the Elektron kind of rumors and stuff. I love the Digitact, you know, and I think the Digitact 2 was a huge upgrade, as we talked about. And this kind of came, I saw there was kind of like some teasers and stuff like that for something Elektron was going to announce. And then the rumors were like, oh, it's going to be the Digitone 2. And sure enough, it is. And man, it looks pretty cool. So they basically did the Digitact 2 treatment to the Digitone. I'm going to probably say both Digi and Diggy because whatever. But yeah, there's a lot here. So when they updated the Digitact, it added a ton of things to it, both in the box, but also quality of life kind of button things and stuff like that. Because you had to do some really interesting little combos just like to get to the keyboard and things like that. So it's very similar to this, where they've done both enhancements to the actual way you use it and then these quality of life things. So Curtis, if you could share just that YouTube video to start.
At a glance, right?
It should be is that the one? Yeah, at a glance. Yeah, that's the one. Yes. Yeah, I just want to play a little bit of the start just so we can kind of hear some of the sounds of it. Before you hit play, though, I just want to hear anybody in the chat. Do you have a Digitone? Are you thinking about it now that you saw this, or would you consider getting one? It is an FM synthesizer, but they've added a lot with this one, where they've added new engines, expanded the voices, and updated effects. Like I said, it's a very similar treatment from the Digitact to Digitact 2 as the Digitone to Digitone 2. So let's check out some of these sounds.
All right, let's do it.
Introducing Digitone 2.
It can sound like this.
Or this.
Or even like this.
It is the reimagining of an already potent box of FM synthesis.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll stop it there. I just wanted to share a little bit because it shows a lot of the variety that this synth can do. I love FM synthesis. It's something I still learn. I mean, I have to, it's complicated, but I do like using FM synths in the DAW. You can get some really cool sounds with it. And it's really interesting to see just in that, 30 seconds, how different you can make that box sound and things like that. And to me, it always seems kind of like the Digitact and Digitone are meant to kind of be together. Like if you need synthesis, there's that. And then if you need sampling, like they kind of like two parts of a whole. But let's go through a little bit about what it did differently. Curtis, can you just get a photo of it that we can share while I run through kind of some of the the changes and stuff like that? So they've enhanced or updated the polyphony and multi-timbrality. It now has 16 voices up from, I don't know if it was 4 or 8. I've never had the Digitone. So if anybody knows, you can throw it in 8. The chat. It was 8. Okay. It was 8. So from there, the 16 allows you to divide those voices across 4 synth tracks. So you can do a lot with that. I think that's pretty cool.
Especially, and then they've got live. That's huge.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's see what else we got. So there's also, this is really cool, new synth engines and filters. So it now has 4 distinct machines, which they're using in a lot of these Digitacts. They use the term machines, but it's a sound engine. So there's the FM tone, which is what was on the original. FM drum, which is a new engine tailored for drum synthesis, which is similar to engines that were in the Syntact or are in the Syntact and model. Wavetone, which is a wave morphing engine that includes phase distortion. I like the sound of that. And then Swarmer, a super saw oscillator designed for detuned wide sounds with noise modulation. Now that sounds awesome. Any thoughts, Eon Lake, before we continue?
Just those last two sound engines, for me personally, massive
Right?
to include those. Some really nasty, filthy, dirty stuff, and some really crazy. So yeah, I mean, I like FM synthesis, but I've always struggled to get what I like out of it. And some sounds I
get
really
that.
hate. It can sound amazing when you get it right. I've just never really gelled with it, but I love the way it sounds when it sounds good.
Yeah.
But they've taken all of that and they've stuck all this other stuff on top of it as well, as if it wasn't flexible enough. And man, it's looking really appealing, isn't it?
It does. It does. And like I was saying, that like when I see all of this and all of its possibilities, I think, oh man, just imagine throwing what you make into the Digitact using Slice Machine or Warp and doing all these crazy things to it. Like that's what I mean when I say it kind of feels like two parts of a whole. They're totally functional on their own, obviously, and like I've never had a Digitone, but I use the Digitact alone for full tracks and stuff. But I feel like they make a lot of sense.
The amount you could cover with two boxes, it would be mental.
Now both are $1,000 if you're getting the twos, which we'll talk about. So $2,000 for that. But yeah, Curtis, before I continue, any thoughts so far on maybe Swarmer? That sounds like something you'd probably really like.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm not very well versed in FM synthesis. It's something that I just haven't really explored much. So this would be a box that would get me into that, if that makes sense. I mean, it's a big kind of like expenditure to make on trying something new, but I can see myself doing that in a world where I had 1,000 to do it.
Yeah, and I mentioned FM because like I love the Volca FM, which is a nice, if you want to get into it. That FM2, the one they made that has I think 6 voice polyphony instead of the 3 of the one that I have, that is something I've had my eye on for a while because as a portable piece of gear for like $300 or $400, that's awesome. But yeah, if you want like way more, this definitely does all of that. I want to share what Pat said in the chat, and then we'll go back. Pat says, not an owner, but EasyBot's stream with it a few days ago is making it tempting to say the least. I was watching that in prep yesterday, and yeah, I know what you mean. It looks really cool. Another thing that is really awesome with it, it added filter options. So there's a multi-mode filter, 24 dB low pass, and then comb filters, which sound really cool. I was watching, I think it was Loop Pop was showing those comb filters. Lots you can do there. And then they've, just like the Digitact, they've expanded the effects section. It adds sample rate and bit reduction, as well as a master compressor. You can do pre and post filter, which I like the sound of that. And then this thing, I think they did this with the Digitact too as well, but improved sequencer with Euclidean patterns. So the sequencer, they've upped it to 128 steps and includes a Euclidean generator for more dynamic rhythmic possibilities. I'm not super familiar with this Euclidean sequencer. So if anybody has used one either in the, I think it's in the Digitact 2 or something. Oh, here we go. Eon Lake, then tell me about it.
Not in these, no, but it's a series of mathematically generated patterns.
Okay.
The easiest way to think about it is when you've got a rhythm that's like 4/3. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get like that.
Like a true drummer.
The subharmonicon does it pretty well. You get subdivisions of certain rhythms, and they play against each other and make longer, more complex sequences. You get a lot of Eurorack modules that do Euclidean stuff. It can be good for drum patterns, but really anything you need a gate sequence for. It's a good way of generating complex rhythms from very simple starting points. It's just like two different numbers that don't correlate, and throwing that in is great. Having it as part of, because it takes your sequencer or arpeggiator or whatever you're including it into, and allows you to do much longer, more complicated, less repetitive things.
Got it. Okay, that does sound really cool. I feel like, especially with a synth, you could do some really cool, trippy things with that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Does it do probability as well, though?
I don't know. I'll have to look, but let me just continue with these, and then we can go. Curtis, maybe Google if the Digitone 2 does probability while I carry on with this. Because speaking of trippy, they've, just like with the Digitact, they've increased modulation options, allowing for 3 LFOs per track, and then easier external modulation routing. and they've improved the workflow with better preset management and a new song mode. So just like the Digitact stuff, adding these types of things. So pricing wise, it's $1,000, $999. I'm not sure what the price of the original was. I remember with the Digitact, it was 800 or 900, and then the 2 is now 1,000. So there may be a slight price increase. But one thing that's nice when these updates happen is you can get the original on the used market for a lot cheaper. And so that's why, like, I made a video a couple months ago about why the original Digitact is still amazing, because even though the 2 adds some really nice things, you don't actually need those. You can save $400 or $500 getting the original. And I mean, I don't think they've updated it, but typically they've been pretty good about updating previous versions. Like I think with the Octatrack Mark 1 or whatever, they were still updating that a little bit after the 2 came out or whatever have you, at least, you know, some slight things, but you're probably not going to get much new updates, if any, to the original versions of the Digitone and Digitact. But where they landed, at least with the Digitact, is awesome. And the changes that came to Digitact 2 didn't do all that much. Like they added new envelope, they added a new LFO, so you could do 3 LFOs and all that type of stuff. So my point here is, if you can, we're always trying to save a buck and look at, you know, ways to get things. So if you don't need some of these new things like the Euclidean sequencer or the 128 steps, because you could do halftime with the 64 steps on the original, you can definitely check the used market and see if it's cheaper. With that said, though, there's some really cool stuff added here. I see Eon Lake in the chat says, I am tempted. So what about it is tempting you, Eon Lake?
Well, the fact that I don't already have one, and just the fact,
I don't know why that's funny to me, but
well, I mean, it means that if I had one, it would be like, is it worth the extra money and all of that nonsense? Yeah. Whereas I don't have one, it's something I don't already have. It's a hell of a lot of sound in one box. I love these little boxes. I love the form factor. They're metal boxes. They feel like they should be stuck on a table and, you know, you should be playing live with them. The buttons and all the controls,
the clickiness, right? That clacky.
I love it.
It's awesome.
I really do.
You know, they're super durable. Like the only thing I've heard is that at least with the Digitact, the buttons can get the original. Like the buttons get a little weird over long, like after you use it for a really long time. But
I've not had any problems yet. But I'll just use it as an excuse to get a new one. But
yeah,
it's just so much sound in a small box. I mean, you can stick that right next to the Digitact, and it's, you know, it's still not taking up much space, and there's so much you can get on with it. And I really like the sound of the new sound engines, because I mean, FM synthesis is good, but it can sound at times, it can sound a bit too smooth, a bit too DX7, you know.
Samey, right? Or like an 80s soundtrack.
They've added, give it the opposite end of the scale as well, which, you know, gives you the flexibility you want if something's justifying some space in a live rig.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the only thing that doesn't push my buttons always is the money, but I do at the same time think that a really good piece of kit that doesn't really have any drawbacks, and they really are working hard to get rid of any now, is kind of worth the extra money. It's worth waiting. It's worth the investment.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. I hear you. I think the only thing for me, and Curtis, I want to hear from you too, but everything's awesome in it. But like, this is a synth, right? When it comes to a synth, it's just a me thing, but I like to have like a keyboard, you know, to play on.
I know, but I've got one of those.
That's true. That's what I was going to say. And with an external, like with the Connect and stuff, it makes a lot of sense. And then if you're sequencing it with something like the Digitact, you know, it's all good. But yeah, I that's always my struggle. And this isn't an Elektron thing. It's like, even with this, you know, the FM, like this ribbon, or this is just ridiculously not fun to play like on its own. And like I've got, well, it's not here, but the Erebus, you know, no synth on it. That's just a me thing. It's not a detraction. But I actually think if like this is for portability or for playing live, I wouldn't want the keyboard, because I'd either be sequencing it or just use the chromatic mode or something. But like, I like big chords, and the little keyboard that's because you can do the chords and keys on those I can't point to it, but the numbers, like the sequencer on the bottom there, that's like the keyboard when you hit the chromatic mode, that little KB scale right under the blue button, which I think that's new, just like with the Digitact, where it's easier to access the keyboard, the chromatic mode. But it totally works. I'm just saying, like, I like having that. But if you've got an external keyboard,
I always want one good keyboard with a decent size to it, and then after that, no keyboards.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, when the Prophet's in here, I just use that as the keyboard for every, just MIDI to boom, all good. But I did just want to mention it again. It's not a knock on it. That is its form factor, and there's tons of synths and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, like, sometimes I can kind of think that Pat says, like, definitely don't watch that EasyBot stream then. So avert thine eyes, okay? But while he looks away. Well, Eon Link looks away. Let's hear from Curtis. You just got a new piece of gear, and quite an awesome piece of gear. But what do you think about this?
I think it's cool. I think I think if you're coming from a space of wanting to play live and wanting to take your electronic music both doorless and into a live sphere where you can perform, it seems to be that Elektron kind of have that market kind of together, right? You got the three, and I'd like to go into that. I'd like to go into that in a second from a place, being the ignorant one here, come from a space of ignorance, but we'll get to that in a sec. But I like what they're doing. I like what they're trying to perceive. I don't know if I have a place for it in my arsenal, just because I'm not big on sequencing in general. I'm not big on that. I like live looping, and I like playing stuff and then hitting the loop and then building on that. And €1,000 is a lot for most people, but for what it is, there is no denying that Elektron are talisman. They're trailblazers in that regard. They really are bringing electronic music to the live scene, which whenever we see these little boxes come out from Elektron, I'm always thinking of Atlas Castle, 59 Perlin, the Petite Victory Collective, where they're doing so much with the live scene, truly taking the live electronic world into the here and now. You can't beat that. And if you're into FM synthesis and you're into sequencing and you want to do that and you want to do it without a computer, it's the best way to go.
Yeah.
There is a caveat though. And again, I just want to, no, there's no buts necessarily. I want to open up a dialogue with you gentlemen and with people watching live, or if people are watching back on Spotify or on Apple Music or wherever, which is hello, nice to see you.
Hey, leave a rating if you like it. It helps a ton.
See how smooth that was. The notion of we have three here, right? So we've just had the Digitact 2. We now have the Digitone 2. And we're probably going to have the Syntac 2 come.
That is newer, soon. Though, to be fair. The Syntac's only a couple years old. The Diggies are, 8 or 9 years old? That one came out maybe before the other one. I don't know. But I know that the original Digitac's like 7 or 8 years old.
You are right. You are right. And we've also got the Octatrack, which is a whole other league, right?
It's already been done, though, isn't it? We're on the 2 for that already. But maybe they'll again. We'll see.
We are. You're right. Not my question, but my kind of airing for those who are not familiar with Elektron and their products and where they're going. This kind of seems like a bit like a choose your Pokemon kind of first instinct, right? So like you've got your Charmander, you've got your Bulbasaur, and you've got your Squirtle, and perhaps you beat your Pikachu if it's Pokemon Yellow, right? And you've got like they all do something, but they don't. They overlap, but they don't all do it. So
that's what I was discussing as well. I mean, I think it's intentional so that you go, I want sampling. Well, I want synthesis. I need to buy both. I mean, it makes sense. Exactly. It's good business practice. But I'm sorry, Curtis. What's your final question in that regard?
I want us as being the responsible humans that we are. I want us to kind of just quickly kind of run down why would one buy the Digitone 2? Why would one buy the Syntac? Why would one buy the Digitact 2? And why would one buy the Octatrack 2? Just very quickly, just so that people might have an idea of where they might go, because there's no way, unless you have a trust fund, there's no way you're buying all 4 of them straight away.
Yeah.
Right. How are you prioritizing it? Let's go for it.
Well, you got to choose a person. Choose your fighter.
Yeah,
Well,
choose your Pokemon.
As the elder in the room, as the Grandmaster Electronic Wizard, Ian Lake, would you like to go for it?
Dude, he just called you old. What are you gonna do, man?
Yeah. I'm rude. I resemble that remark.
Okay.
I'm going to come in with my wrong opinion and say just how I see it. Personally, I don't have a problem with it because I don't think I'm ever going to be an all Elektron shop, so I'll never have all of them. A couple of them might appeal to me, but so Digitakt for me is a small sampler. It's more than that, but it's a small sampler. Storage was an issue, is less of an issue. So it lends itself more towards rhythmical sampling and stuff like that. But you can stretch things out and make weird noises with it and do all sorts of other stuff as well. You can completely go against the grain and decide to do something else with it, which is one of the things I really like. Weapons grade little box. What's not to like? Digitone, it's obviously it's a synth. Essentially, it is a synth. It's now a multi-sound engine is the way they call it. Creates sounds in a lot of different ways, and it's a very flexible one now, but originally was FM based. Again, it's a weapons grade little box. It's not going to take up much room. It's got a lot of flexibility and good sequencing and pattern chaining and song mode sort of options as well. Like the Digitakts, they're both, good for controlling other instruments as well as doing a fair bit themselves. The Syntax is not one that I've really wrapped my head around, and in my mind it sits out as a little bit of an oddity, but it is more of a percussion synth, really, isn't it, as far as I understand it? And it's got more than one way of making sound. That one is this black sheep of the family for me, and no, necessarily not any worse for that. It's just in my head it's less of a defined purpose. But I see it more as a drum computer than anything else. But it does analog modeling, I think, as well as sample based percussive sounds. The Octatrack is like the big sampler, and it is capable of sitting in the middle of a non-DAW setup and controlling everything, sequencing everything. If you like your sequencer to be in a box rather than a laptop. See what I did there? Yep. No DAW. But yeah, I mean, they've all got their strengths. I mean, the Octatrack's got a lot more sampling space, got a lot more room, a lot more functionality, more ins and outs, I think, on it as well. And it's got a really awesome AB slider on it for controlling God knows what. Well, it's up to you. You're right, there's a lot of overlap between them. But I don't think that they're expecting everybody to go out there and buy the lot. I think they are expecting different people to favor different units out of the line, kind of like I do, and mix and match a little bit, rather than it supposed to be one that sells itself. I mean, it'd be a little bit greedy as well, really, at that price, to make a professional grade piece of kit and expect everyone to well, why wouldn't you buy the lot? All sorts of reasons without an endorsement, to be fair.
Yeah, are you done, Ian? Like, I'll carry on with a few other things. I just
yeah. Pick out the bits I missed.
Okay, yeah. So I'll be a little contrarian about the Digitakt with you and say that I think that's a bit of a misnomer or whatever, that its short sampling time is only for rhythmic things and stuff like that, because
you're right.
You can still get, and I know you were summarizing, I'm not criticizing you, but a lot of what I do on there is actually looping full, like 4 bars, 8 bars, whatever, of guitar or of mini log, and then I chop it with like a slice mode, and I've turned guitars into like short percussive pluck synths just by using its envelopes and stuff like that. So there's a lot of power to it, and especially I don't have the Digitakt 2, but it was interesting. We talk about not wanting to cannibalize like the Digitakt and Digitone, but the Digitakt 2 can do stereo sampling, which was the difference between the Octatrack and the Digitakt originally. So there was a lot. That's very interesting to me. Also, that the Digitakt II added the 16. You can have 16 audio channels when it used to just be 8 or 8, 8 and 8 of the MIDI and stuff. So there is some interesting overlap between the Digitakt 2 and the Octatrack. And maybe part of that is the Octatrack is, I don't know, 13, 14 years old. And it got the Mark II, but that didn't actually like, it's not a full upgrade like the SP404 Mark II is to the 404SX. Like it is very much
like the same level of upgrade that, these.
Yeah, these are getting definitely not. These are big, but I think it's still not a complete change. Like the Digitakt 2 is still inherently the Digitakt, but it's got some quality of life changes. Like, oh, you can get to the keyboard with one button now, and then there's an LFO.
I really do reposition it a bit because those limitations are kind of a thing of the past. And like you say, I mean, I said, you might want to do something completely different with it because,
I know that was your escape clause.
Several bars in and pattern changing it. So you were slicing it up, but I just changed the play point.
You can do that too, yeah.
Parameter locking, which is essentially accomplishing a very similar thing and panning all the little bits.
Yes, there's a lot you can do. And then also with the Digitakt, the fact that it's got such strong sequencing capabilities, it can just like an Octatrack, but I don't know if the Digitakt's even more powerful in terms of this sequencing. But like I don't know if I can show it. I have a MIDI through box. Sorry, I'm going away from the camera. This little guy's a MIDI through box. I'm like breaking my back to show that, but so all I do is I have one MIDI out from the Digitakt, go into that thing, go into all of my synths and stuff like that, and it can control all of them on separate channels. And Curtis, with the SP404, you can control every single bank as a separate MIDI channel. So you could have, or you could use the same bank since you only have 4 voices. You can use all 8 of those MIDI channels, or if you're on the 2, all 16 of those MIDI channels, or up to like control, because you get 32 voice polyphony on the SP404. So you could do just like crazy things. The last thing I want to add, I know we've been talking about this for a while, the Syntakt. That's kind of, it's an interesting box from Elektron because it's kind of the in-between for me of the Digitone and the Digitakt, because you can't sample into it, but it's got analog samples, I believe, and then it's got or analog modeled samples. You might have mentioned that, yeah, like the analog drum sounds and stuff. And then these machines, you can do like a chord machine, you can do a synth sound, like all this stuff. So it's kind of this interesting in between. It's never really resonated with me. So I if anybody loves the Syntakt or is familiar with it, you can expand on what I'm saying or correct me. But to my knowledge, like that's kind of its base, is that you can't sample into it, but there's a bunch of like sample sounds and stuff like that that are there, or analog modeled sounds or analog drums and this and that, but it does synths and all that. So it's kind of like their groove box, whereas the Digitakt and Digitone combined are like a total groove box. But like with a sampler, you just sample a sound in and you've got your synth, right? But yeah, so it's an interesting one. So I don't know how or where I'd recommend the Syntakt unless you really kind of just want like an all-in-one box. But not having that sampler to me is like as someone who is obsessed with sampling, and I'll say that at the start, like I don't know where it would fall for me, but a lot of people seem to really like it, and I've heard some really cool stuff come out of it. But yeah, I think when it comes to like choosing your Pokemon, it's like, do you want the sampler? Do you want a synth? Do you want an all-in-one sequencer? Do you want the like kind of everything with the Syntakt, or do you want the Octatrack 2 is an incredible performance thing. Pat was talking about EasyBot. He does all these things. It's got that slider, and Ricky Tinez does it too with the sliders. You can do all these effects. It's a very interesting kind of like pseudo SP404 thing with that, but then this crazy sampler and like workflow. The workflow on that thing looks intense.
I think with a lot of these boxes, when they're like in the non-traditional form of not having keyboards and not like having stuff as we'd imagine it traditionally to be, it can be quite overwhelming in that regard. Like literally, like I say, coming back to the 404, I looked at it, it's all buttons, and I'm like, I have no idea where to start.
Oh, I know. So like, you got to watch some videos before you even use it. Honestly, like that's what I did. I watched just like a gazillion videos before it even came because I was excited about it, and then I kind of was like, oh, I guess I know what it's doing. And then you watch those videos while you're working on it, and it all starts to click.
exactly.
You
And
also
I
have
think
to remember that you're on a scale that on one end you've got curiosity, and the other end you've got mastery, and in between is fun if you do it right.
yeah, that's a great way of putting it. You know, like it's about the
Don't
journey.
put pressure on yourself. Just try and enjoy it, because
Yeah, enjoy it,
can be
and
intimidating.
and it will get you stumped quite a lot.
Mm.
And I think this is, I mean, we're talking Digitact and Elektron or Digitone, like those are difficult workflows too, but I think they're difficult because they can do so much. So once you kind of figure out what you want to do with it first, like I primarily want, I'm talking now about the SP, but it's the same for me with the Digitact and probably the Digitone, but that might be a little easier since it's a dedicated synth, but kind of focus on one aspect you want to go in on to start, like pattern sequencing or
Got a job to do.
yeah, or live looping, or I want to do a lot of sound design with the sound generator and the internal effects, or I want to just send the guitar in and do effects. Like focus on that first because that's your base. You've now established a part where you feel confident with it, and then you can be like, okay, now let's try live looping. Oh, now let's try recording in with some measure set. Oh, now let's start building some chromatic mode things with the sounds we're designing, like this and that. Like just start small and then kind of branch out slowly, and it all starts to kind of click. And then at some point you'll just be like moving, just all muscle memory.
I love that. And to branch off of that, because that's a really, really good kind of vocalization of methodology and how one should approach these boxes. Just to branch off of that in that notion of these things are meant to be fun in that regard, and they can be very
I like
overwhelming.
saying branch, by the way. We're branching off.
They can be overwhelming. They can be, and there is a lot of space to be comparing and creating an expectation of what should be happening and what you should be trying to work for in these boxes. And one thing can be said for sure, whether you want to buy one or not, is they do provide exploration of a different kind. I think all of us as producers, whether we start in the DAW or whether we start on a synthesizer, be that analog or digital, whatever, when it comes to these Elektron boxes, they are different in that regard. And that's a very different workflow, and it's a very different kind of way of seeing sound being made. And that exploration is the fun in its own right. And to go and try and run before you can walk is not necessary. You're kind of missing out on that regard of the fun of it, as Ian Lake would say, the journey of getting towards mastery in that regard.
I did just want to mention too, speaking of mastery and all that type of stuff, we didn't even talk about the affordable or more affordable Elektron boxes. The I think it's model cycles, and there might be one more. We don't need to go into it, but if you do want to, if like these seem interesting to you and you want to get into it, but you don't want to throw down $1,000 for a sampler or for the synth, I think one of those models does sampling, one does like synth stuff. I could be wrong, but check out the models. I think they're like $300 or $400. Curtis may have just Googled it so he could check, but I want to say they're like $300 or $400, somewhere in that kind of like affordable price range. But from what I've read, also the workflow is a little simpler, but it also kind of translates into kind of like what if you do get to the big boys like the Octatrack or the Digitact or something, like it will kind of make a little sense. So yeah, oh here, sorry, I stopped sharing your screen, but you've got it pulled up here. This is the model sample. So one is a sample, and I think there's a model cycle or something that might be more like the synth version or something. But yeah, there we go. Look at it. He got everything pulled up. Way to go, man. But yeah, so I would recommend, like, if you don't want to make the big leap into something really expensive, but this kind of interests you or you like the sound, check it out. They are of, I don't want to say lesser build quality, but obviously, yeah, they're like 300. Is that euro, Curtis?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they are like $300, $400 or something like that. So it is going to be not like this crazy metal box. I think it might be plastic or something, but I've heard good things about them. I've seen some people do really good things on YouTube with it. So yeah, just an option I wanted to mention. But from there, unless there's anything else you gents want to cover, let's move over to the community corner. Oh, Ian Lake's got, oh man, two. Wow.
Go
ahead, man.
Firstly, since the Digitact was updated to version 2, I saw one on eBay for £350, and I could not believe it. I had to check. It wasn't that was a buy it now price. I've never seen them for anything less than double that before, so that's a good thing, and will probably happen with the Digitone as well. So you might be able to get one of the crazy metal versions secondhand and have some fun with that. And the other thing is, I was looking for drawbacks with this, and I don't think there are many. Price is an obvious one, and people will cover that. There is one, I think, perhaps particularly with a device that isn't sample based and has presets and so on, and that is everyone's going to have these boxes, right? There is a risk of beginning to sound like other people a lot. I think at one end of the scale, you get these people who curate weird and wonderful instruments and have an odd sound as a result and are very distinctive. And then you get people who are got the same kit everyone else has, and it depends how you use it, obviously, doesn't it? And that you can control this, but there is a risk that you might end up sounding like everyone else who has Elektron gear. So, you can manage that. I mean, if they're sample based, put different samples in. Do you know what I mean? But, you might end up just doing the same thing everyone else is. And that's not always the best way to go as an artist, is it? You might want to find something more your style just for the hell of it.
Yeah, definitely.
That, and well done for the Pokemon tie-ins. I haven't seen anyone cover how do these new Elektron boxes relate to the world of Pokemon. I know it's hard to believe, but there we go.
Everything relates to Pokemon.
Got your back.
But yeah, no, it's a very good point. And I think it is important to maintain these notions of originality and using them for you instead of moving into a box so that you work for the box, making the box work for you.
It's having that idea of, I could do that with it because that's something that I want to do because that's my thing, then that's all cool. But not just for the sake of it,
Exactly, yeah. Definitely not going to load any lo-fi samples on this SP404 that I've just got here.
You say that now. You'll see, man. You'll see.
Mate,
or you'll throw the little lo-fi effect on, or Bit Crusher and lo-fi, and then there you go. 404 vinyl sim. Noise goes up. Wow, and flutter goes up.
How much crispy 142 BPM stuff you're doing on that? At some point, you're going to hit the lo-fi button.
Yeah. Yep.
Half that BPM.
Yeah, you'll go to 138, go to half, and be like, "Oh, sleepy time lo-fi." Okay.
But then you can remix yourself. You can remix your lo-fi tracks as techno.
Psytrance, yeah. I mean, give me a month, and there'll be an overhead shot of the SP404, a small little succulent, and then a cup of coffee. I'll be in a beanie. Give it a month.
It's coming, man.
Some crystals.
It's happening.
Some crystals, maybe matcha tea instead of coffee or something. We'll see.
Exactly. I'll have to see. So yeah, if you have had the pleasure of checking out the Digitone 2 already and you have your thoughts or comments, please let us know. We are 3 people talking about it for the last 48 minutes and 33 seconds, and none of us have actually laid our hands on it. So if you have got an idea of what it's like and what it's good for, where it's good, where it's bad, etc., let us know. We're always fun. This is all about the community at the end of the day. And so, speaking of the community, we have got a few pieces in the community corner before we go to our next big segment of the week. This is more of a kind of a couple of public service announcements, you might say, for now, a couple of dates, small bits and bobs. Firstly, our Discord challenge, the Frankenstein flip, we have decided to push back by another 7 days. A few people in the Discord have had some constraints with time, for want of a better phrase. And so for the name of it is a community event and it's all about the community, we've decided to push it back one more week. And so we'll be having our Discord listening party this time next week, around about this time, when the wibbly wobbly time of time zones.
No, we'll be back to normal, I think. So it'll be 10 a.m. Pacific for the listening party and then 11 a.m. Pacific for the show. We should be, because I looked, it says our time change is coming Sunday. So
there we go. Awesome. So yeah,
sometimes
so
it's like 2 or
so,
3 weeks, remember? And that's a
I know.
nightmare.
It's last week. It was insane.
Oh my
Last week
God.
was insane. So yeah, it's good this week. We've got 7 days. So if you are down for the Frankenstein flip, the original sample is in the Discord. If you want to get involved, deadline for that is Tuesday, because it's going to take us a day to kind of collate it all. Basically, the idea is that you make a 24-bar piece of music, which then we stitch all together so we have this one big piece in the name of something creepy and weird for Halloween. It's going to be great.
So I love that sample you put. It's a nice little one shot, right, of like a chord. And I went in a direction I've never done. It's like some kind of like psych rock. I don't even know, man. I was like, whoa. I did it in 20 minutes because I was like, I had 20 minutes yesterday, and I was like, Curtis has to have it by Tuesday. So I just did this thing. I used the session drummers to get like a psych rock drummer or something like that, and then I changed it and stuff, and then I added a session bass player because I figured out now if you set a chord progression, like you set the chords, you can actually then go into each chord and change it to whatever you want. You can borrow chords from other keys. You can do minors, sixes, sevens, ninths, like all this stuff. And so I just went crazy with this bass. And then I did like chops on your synth and stuff. And now that I've got a little more time, I'm going to try to add a little more. But I found, you know me, I always do short songs, right? And I found in the 44 seconds, I was like, I need more time. I couldn't get it. I was like, this is the first time I've ever felt like I need more time. But anyways, the point I wanted to make is just have fun with it. There's no rush. If you're coming in, you just found the channel or something and you want to take part, see what you can do. It's 44 seconds. That's all you have to make. I think it's 24 bars at 132 BPM. But yeah, it's just have fun. There's no judgment here. We're not doing any sort of critiquing. We just all hang out at the listening party, listen to everybody's tracks, and offer just like, that was awesome. I love that. You know, I would take this. And then we like to also ask everybody their takeaway from the project, like what you learned in doing this, because we all kind of get something different from doing these. And then we can all kind of come together and learn that. And yeah, the Discord link, Curtis just shared it. Moving on from there, though, this show is brought to you by our patrons. They support the show week in and week out. Much love to all of our patrons. If you want to help support the show, you can head to patreon.com/Audionaut. The link is in the description. You get a ton of extra features. There's a Discord channel specific for patrons. You can also come onto the show, like Lars. I see you. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to hop in. He was mid-stretch. Sorry about that. You can finish your stretch. I'm still going to say a couple more things. He's continuing his stretch. Don't worry. He's getting that stretching. But anyways, you get that. You also get early access to all of the Audionautic Records releases. And there's a bunch of other perks and things like that. You can head to patreon.com/Audionautic to check it out. Just hanging out is more than enough, but much love to our patrons who help us do this. Like I said, week in and week out. Without them, we couldn't do this. It takes time to do all this stuff. And yeah, their support means the world. And that's how we're able to do this. So head there. But Lars, I think you're good, right? Can I bring you in? One more thumbs up. Okay, he's not stretching, so he's good. Let's bring Lars in, and then we'll talk Blue Sky real quick. Lars, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
You good, dude?
Loving the earrings.
Yeah, new earrings, huh?
Oh, why? Thank you. Yes,
Beautiful.
I'm
Cool,
trying
man.
to recapture my youth.
I can see that. Yeah.
It's not
You're
working. but,
where's the
you know.
BC Rich though? Where's the BC Rich? Yeah, that.
So,
Ooh,
it
Are
is-
you using an iPad, by the way? It's doing
I
that
am.
motion.
I got
Yeah,
myself an iPad for my
nice,
birthday.
dude. I got an iPad
Nice.
Air, the new one, and it does that when like I FaceTime with my parents for Luca, when it like focuses on him and then zooms out and stuff. I was like, oh,
It's
okay.
really weird.
Yeah, it's trippy, but I saw it like following you, and I was like, oh, that's got to be that new iPad thing. But yeah, the BC Rich will help you fully reclaim that youthful look with the earrings. The BC Rich, you know, shred some power chords, palm mute a little bit.
I'm trying. It's over in the corner because it fell off the wall the other day.
Oh no, is the neck
Okay.
all right?
Oh yeah, it's fine. That thing is a beast. Like literally, it's a son of a beast.
BC
Yeah,
Rich
it's
beast.
scroll.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything real quick you've got on Elektron or something before we go to Blue Sky? We got to move a little quick.
I
Got to
mean,
go do dad duty, but
yeah. No, it looks really nice. I've never owned a piece of Elektron gear though. I
Yeah,
know
okay.
people who have and they really like it, but
yeah.
also like want to drop $1,000 on a box. Like
I hear you.
that's a tough one for me because I keep looking at Machine Plus, which is like the standalone version of it, and it's like just over 1,000. I'm like, no.
I would say check used market for any of that stuff, but especially like you can get a Digitact or Digitone 1 for a lot cheaper on the used market. Like I think the Digitact 1, what I use, and I would still recommend the 1 if you don't need what's in the 2 and stuff. You can get those, I think 500-600 or something. So and Ian like said he found a Digitone for 300.
Oh, it's a Digitact, the original.
Oh, so it might drop more than
350 British pounds. I nearly bought it just because I was twitching. Bargain. It's a bargain. It's a bargain. You got one, you idiot. It's a bargain.
Yeah,
somebody to smack me around the head.
So I would check that out if you do want to. I mean, I have really taken to the Digitact, like just for sequencing all that. I know you've got some crazy like little hardware and stuff. You'd probably really like it, especially with all of the sonic things you can do, like sound design wise. Once you get a sample in there, it's pretty crazy. But yeah.
Well,
anyways,
you were talking about the new Digitone 2 with that last engine that's part of it. You said
right.
Things
I was like,
and it's like
noisy.
You say.
I was like, that's when I saw it. I was like, that's right up Lars's alley, man.
Yeah.
Noise, you say?
Wavy stuff and the noisy stuff. Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah. All right, Curtis. Let's move on though, and go to Bluesky. So, what's going on with Bluesky?
Right. So it's an interesting little piece, and it's cool that we got Lars here because Lars at the moment is always experimenting with different forms of social media and different ways of going. But yeah, if you're unfamiliar with the notion, if you're unfamiliar with Bluesky its own right, there is one of these new alternative social medias which are popping up, which are rivaling, and basically it's looking to rival X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it these days. It's a butterfly as opposed to a bird, a blue butterfly as opposed to a blue bird. So take that alliteration as what you will. But basically, it's raised $15 million in funding through the blockchain. And as a result of that, it's looking to create a social media or more of a social media based around usability and user-led usability. And so what they've done is they've announced that they are creating a monetization pathway akin to that of X or akin to that of YouTube in their own right. This will be devoid or separate from their existing blockchain monetization stuff. But essentially, they're looking to create an ecosystem within their platform where content creators can create their content that they want to create and then monetize what they're making in order to generate revenue and essentially create a self-fulfilling business for them in their own right. They want to introduce a subscription model with premium features such as high quality videos, profile customization, and maintaining a platform which is free to use as well. And now monetization platforms have created bottlenecks where monetized accounts or blue ticked accounts have preferential treatment, whereas Bluesky have said categorically that this is not going to be the place to be there. So if you have a monetized account, if you have a higher end account in that regard, you'll still get a customer service and you'll get stuff coming through. You'll get things through that are available to you as a content creator, but that doesn't mean that you'll be prioritized, which is really cool, which kind of pushes forward that notion of usability and a social media of the people on paper, at least. And it then, as well as that, they're attaching this notion of creating like a monthly subscription similar to Patreon in that regard, which is interesting. It's a really nice idea in that regard. Now, that's what they're doing. Before we go into analysis, is there anything you want to say on that?
And Lars, if you do, remember to keep it PG. I saw that face. I was like, oh boy.
You got me. Okay, so I don't know. I've been using Bluesky, and Bluesky is like, of all the social media I've ever used, it's like, it seems to be the calmest, like most chillest. Like, people don't really argue. People don't really seem to fight too much on there. It's just people sharing stuff, which is really, really cool. That being said, like I think Threads is a really good like warning about monetization, because like, so at this point I've abandoned Threads. I deactivated my account. I'm like, I'm not messing with this anymore, because they started monetizing things, right? And once they announced that they were going to start monetizing things, you saw just like tons of engagement bait posts, rage bait posts, it's just noise at this point. And that it got really annoying. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to leave this alone for a few months and I'll come back and see what it's done then. But so far, their monetization has not been good for the platform. It's just turned into a bunch of noise and a bunch of people just rage baiting. So it's basically turning into Twitter at this point.
I just feel like even before that, it never evolved past that. Because I remember when it first launched, it's like, musicians, I'm trying to connect with XYZ genres, this and that. Comment below, which is just obviously a engagement bait. And I would see that when Threads first launched. That's all I would see, just like fellow musicians, looking for this, or filmmakers look at like.
And that it's funny because that stuff died down quite a bit, and now it's literally just it's just the stupidest questions you can imagine. I thought like, man,
also threads that like say they're gonna say an opinion and then don't until the comment, or they're like, can't believe that in this movie, literally like can't believe that, and the comments will be like, what movie, what's that, just to get engagement.
Yeah, and it's like I was mad about it at first, and then I had to remind myself, it's like, this is owned by Meta. Like, this is basically just Facebook Lite. It's like if Instagram and Facebook had a baby that got thrown into the gutter.
Okay.
Fair analogy. Yeah.
Fair analogy. The notion then stemming from that is whether or not Bluesky are funneling in the wrong way. Now, Bluesky have been around for a year and a half now ish. And at first it was invite only, and in our little niche there were lots of like, hey, have you got an invite? It was a bit like Google Plus before Google Plus disappeared into the ether. And it's there, it's chill, and it's sitting there, and it's meant to be this rival specifically for X, which continues to be interesting.
Well, more than that, isn't it Jack Dorsey that set it up? So it's like ex-Twitter people recreating that kind of thing for people who still go misty-eyed about the early days of Twitter and so on, which I appreciate to some extent. It was a lovely place, but I think because of what Lars is saying, it was because of the fact that it wasn't that monetized to start with, and it's when you start introducing the money and people are really just trying to grab attention with triggers of one kind or another, that's when it all starts to go a bit downhill. And I do wonder, without that man, what Twitter would have been like now. I think it would be still headed a bit in that direction for the same reasons. It's just that man came along and just accelerated everything and just nosedived, created it. So I think you're right. Bluesky feels kind of quite chill at the moment, but I do worry it's gonna go Threadsy.
That's what I was gonna say. Bluesky is the one I find most interesting, like an enigma, because I think it has the most promise, but there's also not a ton of like engagement, but it doesn't seem to have this sort of algorithm thing yet. But then it's also the enigma there is that I worry that it's just like what you said Threads devolved into is basically how I feel pretty much any social media platform devolves into when it starts to do for you over follower, pushing algorithm over followers and things like that. And I'm just looking like nothing you said, Curtis, is too worrisome yet, like in this monetization pathway. And I don't see anything. And I'm not trying to fear monger. It's just like I worry most because I think this is the most like promising platform. So I'm like, this is great. Please don't change it. But every platform does typically. So that's why. So hopefully I'm making sense. I'm not trying to spell doom and gloom or something. I'm just saying like I find it the most interesting. I also find the least engagement on there, but I think it could be something good if it continues to grow, which I think it hit over 10
Mm-hmm.
million users or something. I don't know if that invite only rollout was the best way to go, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, I think it's the most promising. I think it's the most interesting as well, with how it's kind of like not seemingly algorithmic. It's very like follower based. When I do post on there, like I see followers liking it and stuff, and which you don't typically see. So I think if it can stay in that way, that's awesome. I know the way social media platforms go.
Yeah, because Lars's points, I think, are quite timely. I think there is a bit of a backlash towards all of this blatant like attention farming. I mean, everybody's doing it to some degree, but some people do it with a lot more class than others, and some people are just ridiculous. And I think this is causing everybody, and I think the subsequent generations that come along to approach social media differently. I think it's a bit icky, really, isn't it? So I do think, as an organization that's building these sort of things, you got to be kind of careful how you do it, because I think you could end up pushing your user base away to a certain extent.
It's true.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. I think another thing that Bluesky seems to have going for it, though, is they have been really reluctant to implement any kind of like AI features in there. And I've noticed, like, with what I still call Twitter, I'm not calling it X. I don't care what they say. And then with Threads after that, they really embrace like a lot of the generative AI. And with Threads, like if you just scroll through like what the algorithm feeds you, you can kind of pick it apart and notice it's like a lot of these responses and a lot of these initial posts and stuff are most likely generated by ChatGPT or one of the other bots.
Dead internet, man.
Yeah.
Dead internet theory, exactly.
Right,
yeah.
Curtis?
Yeah,
You looked like you wanted to say something, Curtis. What were you going to say earlier?
I lost my train of thought.
Hold on. Well, you think I'll tell Lars, do you have headphones? Because I think we're getting some echo through your iPad. If not, I'll just mute you till you need to say something, because it's just echoing.
Yeah, I got you. Here, let me go grab some.
No worries, man. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get Curtis's thoughts. Did you recompose your thoughts there, Curtis?
Yeah, I got completely subsumed by the notion of dead internet theory, which I do believe. There's currently only 4 people online ever.
It's just us.
Yeah, it's just us. No, it's interesting. I wanted to come back to this notion of monetization. We know that if you want to be an independent musician in this modern world, it's not, sadly, it's just not about the music anymore. It's not about the music you make or the art you create. It's about the content that you create, because you've got to keep feeding that capitalist machine, because that's the world in which we live. And until the end of time, that's going to be the way it is going to be. So let's for a moment, let's suspend our notions of pushing against this and just maintaining art for the sake of art. Let's maintain that as independent musicians, what we are doing, as well as we are creating content to feed that in order to boost our profile, in order to sell our own records. Okay, let's just sit with that for now. The question becomes, in this notion where you've got Facebook, you've got TikTok, you've got Instagram, is there a space for things or spaces, or sorry, platforms like Bluesky, when you've got such a market share, so to speak, and all right, be it AI driven or not, be it dead internet driven or not, you've got these spaces which a lot of people go to, and there's these monetization. Is Bluesky offering anything different? And is it something that the independent musician who might be watching this, hi if you are, should consider dealing with? And it looks like Lars is really biting at the bit to go here.
That's just his camera moving now.
I want to. Yeah,
it's an interesting point, right? Yeah.
We talked to social media last week about if you had one social media, where do you focus on? And we had the Instagram, we had the Facebook, we had the TikTok,
YouTube.
Does Bluesky? YouTube, sorry, yes, completely right, Simwalper. And I will address this to you first and foremost as my co-pilot and as my brother. Is there a space for Bluesky in this?
Are you asking me then, not Lars first? Okay, yeah. I think we're gonna have to. That's what we're gonna see. That's I think this is the experiment is whether there is a place for it. I hope so, but I think it's an interesting one because, like I was saying, that they're doing this kind of like low algorithm thing or no algorithm, and you get interesting reach. But me personally, in using it, I don't get. I don't know. It's like we're gonna have to see. There's not a lot of users on there. I don't have people asking me like, "What's your Blue Sky?" Then also the weirdest thing, unless it's changed, is the account names. It's like sunwarper.bluesky. It's like a ridiculous username. Like they need to fix those handles and all that. It's got a lot going for it, but then I don't know if that's what people are going to be wanting. I think there's a subset of people, 10 million apparently, that want this like kind of refreshing retro version of it, but either they're not talking about it enough to reach new people, or that's just not what people want now. They want the algorithms. They want, I don't know. So the only thing I'll say instead of positing yes or no is this is what we're going to see with this. Here's an actual test. Like, let's see what happens, right? I try to post on it and then I forget and then I post on it. Yeah, like I said, it's just weird for me because like I get engagement on there, but then there's not a lot of people. I don't weird. Yeah.
Okay. Lars, you're currently muted, but it looks like you've got something to say.
Yep, there it goes.
Okay, so I don't know about like if Blue Sky is actually going to be like, because it's like some Warper was saying, it's like there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of people on there, and like it's not super algorithmically driven. And then for like musicians, it's like, what does Blue Sky really have to like offer a musician?
You can't do
like,
video.
They just started giving us video though.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, just started giving us video. So you can upload video, and I've tried it. It doesn't work very well. Like they got some bugs to work out because I had uploads fail and I had to keep trying to upload. So as much as I hate to say it, I really think like the best platform for musicians at this point is probably Instagram. Like Instagram seems to be like you can post pictures of like your album artwork. You can post pictures of your process. You can post videos really easily. Like in my opinion, it seems to have the most advantages for like someone who's like a musician or artist. Because one, it's highly visual. Like it's not just, a microblogging site. And it's like really like the most successful microblogging site is Twitter, obviously. Threads is a clone of that. And what did people go to Twitter for in the first place? Everyone's unhinged, weird thoughts. That's what everybody wanted out of Twitter. Just weird, unhinged thoughts that people just had to spit out into the ether. And I don't know that Blue Sky has anything really to offer musicians specifically. And they don't seem to want to do that one either with the weird, unhinged thoughts, algorithmically driven. So I'm really not sure what they're going for at this point. And I'm afraid that with the monetization, they're going to end up trying to go like grabbing for the money, and the money is in engagement bait, apparently.
Yeah. I just want to say too, with the Instagram, a lot of people say that, but I just find the way they've just completely clamped down on reach, specifically reach to your followers, but just in general. I remember pre-2020 and even like 2020, 2021, my reels, my carousels would reach like a good number of people. And now like a reel that does crazy on TikTok or on YouTube Shorts or both will get like 200, 300 views on Instagram. Oh, you're muted, Lars. But real quick, I know there's like the tastes change on a social media platform and stuff, but it is interesting that videos that will do really well. And I've heard this from others. It's not just me, but yeah, it seems like the reach there is just tanked.
Yeah. And you brought up TikTok, and that's one I keep forgetting about. Like I have TikTok accounts and I post stuff to them like very irregularly, but I mean that one I get fairly decent reach on that one too. Like especially compared to Instagram. Yeah. Instagram is so hit or miss. Like I'll post like one reel or picture or something and it'll get like 60, 70 likes and a bunch of people see it. And then I'll post something very similar later on and it's like 10 likes. Yeah. 100 people saw it.
Crazy.
Like, cool. Thanks,
I do just want to say I didn't doubt you, but I just posted a video to Blue Sky and it worked.
Nice.
So not that I doubted you, you just made me like, oh, so that is really cool if they finally added video. I think that does change things a little bit for musicians if you can do video. I also find it doesn't seem like linked, like if you put a link in a video in a post, it doesn't seem to negatively impact you like it for sure does on Twitter and for sure does on Threads. You can't even link on Instagram and TikTok. Don't even try it. They'll just completely quash your video. But that I think is very huge. So there is a lot of promise. It just needs to hit the user mark. Like it needs to get people on it.
I don't want to cut Eon. I don't want to. You make a really good point, Sunwalker, and I want to branch off that, but I also don't want to take out Eon Lake from this.
No, go on.
The idea of Sunwalker has always been about this, and when we were talking about this on the Audionautic by working through Audionautic, the idea of the early adoption phase, and when Bluesky came out, particularly Sunwalker, you were, if I remember correctly, were like, yeah, we need to get on Bluesky early adoption, we need to get on it, and fair play. That's what we've been doing, and which comes to this notion of, even if you are somewhat, but as you're saying, it's like we'll have to wait and see. We'll see where it's going to go. We don't know what's going to happen. It's not algorithmic based. It could get clickbaity. It could not, etc. You have to see where we're going. Does that mean that because it's still in that early stages where it's still relatively unknown, it's still a relatively small user base, so to speak, is there still a notion of get in while you might as well try it? You ain't got anything to lose. Is that fair? Would that be a fair kind of?
I think so.
Sure. Yeah.
It's better to be on it at the start than come later when all the crap's already been changed and all the algorithms have been set and all that. Because if you can at least reach people, then you may still reach them later, or they might migrate to your next platform or something. And if nothing else, you've tried it, and it doesn't hurt if you have a post you make on X or on Threads, make the same post.
Yeah.
No, I get you.
I'm happy to be wrong, if someone disagrees, but I just think there's nothing to do. But guys, I unfortunately have to leave in about 3-4 minutes. I do want to ask what we're all up to. Is there anything, maybe like a bullet point, one sentence you want to add to this topic that you think we need to cover? Eon Lake?
I like what they set up and what they were about when they started. It's clear it's a base offering. This is probably where we find out where it's going and what their plans have been all this time. We'll just have to see, really.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Lars, anything?
I'm skeptical.
I wouldn't think anything else from you. that seems like Curtis. Anything?
No, I think it's a great skepticism. Healthy skepticism is a good way to go. Take us through to the end show, my brother.
All right, last bit. What we're all up to. Like I said, I'm sorry, I do have to go. So if we could just keep it short. But Eon Lake, what are you up to this week?
I'm doing homework, doing music homework. Like Curtis should be doing music homework. I'm learning my newer bits of kit. I'm reading manuals and trying some crazy stuff. And you should be too, Curtis, because you've got new stuff to learn. Be a good boy.
Such a dad, man. You should too, Curtis. Lars, what about you?
I am currently reinstalling everything on a new computer because my laptop finally crapped out on me after 7 or 8 years.
That's a good run, though.
Nice.
That's a good run.
Good luck.
I rock it till the wheels fall off.
There you go. Yeah.
Nice.
And Curtis, what about you?
Well, it's going to be all about the SP. It's got to be. I've got an SP to get to know, and I've got a pedal board under here which I need to rewire. So those things are going to be. That's it's all about building for me. But I will say on air that I did skip over some Walker at the start of the show because in the excitement and discombobulation.
You just love that digitone, huh?
All right. Well, just the discombobulation of the wibbly wobbly time.
I didn't even realize it. I was like, yeah, let's move to the digitone. Yeah, it's all good, man. I just wanted to say though, since we're doing this, that we talk a lot about like our struggles in the studio and stuff, and when we don't have time, like Eon Lake didn't have time. I've gotten up early every day this week at like 5:30 a.m. to sit with that stupid 25 key keyboard and my computer. And I've been making music. I give myself 30 minutes with coffee. Like while the coffee's kicking in, my brain's revving up. So it's like really just kind of just see what happens. And I can forward, just kind of go. And I've made I have this idea for that album I've been talking about, and I've never been able to like formulate because I don't have the time to get to it. And I've been using Logic instead of Reason, which is how I usually start in the DAW, and it just didn't click. But it's finally starting to kind of make sense. And I've got like 3 or 4 songs that are like, oh, okay. And then it's just that excitement when things are clicking again and like, oh, well, yeah, I want to add vocals. Let's make the song in a vocal structure. So less about building every 2 bars and more like, okay, this will be the verse. And then I'm trying parts like if I get a chord progression, I throw it to ChatGPT and I'm like, give me ideas that I can borrow chords from other keys. And then it throws out like 5 or 6 and I find the one that I like what I'm hearing in my head. Because again, the coffee hasn't set in. So I hear it, but I can't get it on that stupid little keyboard because I need more keys. And then I find one from like the 4 or 5 it recommends, and then that's the change of the chord progression for a later part and stuff. So it's been a lot of fun doing this kind of different experiment. But yeah, I know we talked the weirdness of AI and stuff, but for something like this, it makes a lot of sense. I give it the chord progression, and if I'm not sure the key because I'm borrowing stuff, I'm like, what would you say it is? And then find me keys or chords that I can borrow that, you know, do this and that. And it's like, an interesting way to do it.
I will say AI is really weird, but I have found a lot of use for it as basically an interactive encyclopedia.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a Wikipedia you can ask questions, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. When I do research for like videos and stuff, I'll throw it to that and be like, I just, you know, take these links and like compartmentalize it for me. And then I like fact check and all that. Always want to fact check it. But now at least it researches instead of just giving you information from its pool. It actually searches websites, which is kind of weird, but it gives you the sources. And it's like, this is where I found that. So yeah.
I'm glad you found your Strive.
Yeah. I don't know how long it'll last, but at least I've had this like ethereal idea of like, this is how I want to do the next album. And then I could never get to actually making it because there's no time and stuff. So at least I've got something kind of forming. I don't know how many songs will stick, how many are just like 8-bar loops that I might just shelve for later or something, but it's just nice to do something and not something with like this stuff, like something completely different, you know?
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for you in that regard. The notion that you've been talking about this for a long time, especially at least since Father came out. And this notion of like,
I do. I haven't done the vocals yet. That's not for early morning.
But we're getting there.
We'll get there. Let's get the songs first, and then we'll get some stuff. We'll
next
get there.
year on Audionaut Records is going to be a lot of fun in that regard.
Yeah, I don't. It might even be. This is the other thing. I have a song for some other label coming out that was a track I did on a video that's in November. But other than that, I don't have anything in the schedule at all for releases.
It's gonna be great. That's different for you. Different for you.
So we'll see. Might even be 2026. We'll see. I don't know.
I'm getting into it.
I'm fighting every inclination when I'm like, I could turn this into a release. No.
Exactly. Well, that's what's gonna be fun. So, like, if for a little peek behind the curtain, Sunwarper and I sit down at the end of the week. I know you got to go. Sunwarper will be really quick.
Yeah, no worries, man.
That on Monday we sit down for our yearly long planning where we sit and plan out the next 20 years. We sit down, we carve out about 2.5, maybe 3 hours. We sit down on a Monday, we kind of carry on with what we're going to do for the whole year, what we've done, have we met our goals, what have we missed, how can we improve, and then what are we going to do for next year? And it's going to be an exciting time as we get into autumn, as the nights get shorter, and as the wibbly wobbly time keeps us going. It's going to be an exciting year for us all, and it's going to be fun in that regard.
Yeah. It's going to be cool. I can't believe we did 11 or 12 albums or releases in a year. That's crazy. Anyways, we will be back next week, 11 a.m. Pacific, which should be normal time for the rest of the world. Sorry about the craziness of time changes, but that's a bit out of our control. But we'll be back normal time, and then 10 a.m. an hour earlier, we'll be on the Discord for our listening party. If you haven't taken part in the challenge yet, we'd love to see you over in the Discord. Link is in the description. It's up in the chat earlier, but you can find it in the description. And if you're on Apple and Spotify, it'll be in there. But come join us. It's judgment free. We just hang out. We listen to. We all come together, listen through it, and just have fun and enjoy what we're all making, and hopefully learn something from each other. But with that, we will see you next week.